The morning after a Muslim couple went on a shooting rampage in San Bernardino, New York's Daily News took aim at Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Lindsey Graham, and Paul Ryan for tweeting about their prayers for the victims. God isn't fixing this, blared the screaming headline, calling Republicans cowards who could end the gun scourge but were offering platitudes. And with that, the media politicization of the latest tragedy was underway.
I say this, if you want to line up with terrorists and try to take God away, you're not on the right side. That's all I'd have to say to those politicians who want to tell you to stop praying. Just don't.
You know what? Everybody stop praying and just go to the Daily News, because apparently they have a direct connection to God on what he will and will not do.
Everybody is, I think, frustrated. Everybody's asking why, and everybody's asking what can we do, but we have to do something. As the New York Daily News said, God is not going to fix it. We have to fix it.
So are the media exacerbating tensions after the California massacre and the Planned Parenthood shootings in Colorado? Joining us now, Gail Trotter, conservative commentator who contributes to Town Hall, The Hill, and other outlets. And Richard Fowler, host of a nationally syndicated liberal radio show. Gail, what do you think of this Daily News cover?
It's the same thing that the New York Times did. They took their editorial and put it on the first page. They just did it in a more concise fashion, with one sentence being their thesis and pictures. But it's the same thing. It shows that many in the media assume that gun control will fix the mass shootings that we're having and the terrorist attacks. And it's offensive to a lot of Americans, because it feels like it's an attack not only on our First Amendment rights of free exercise, but also our Second Amendment rights to make sure that we can protect ourselves and our families. So it seems like a double whammy.
And by the way, unlike the New York Times, this is a headline for a news story, not an editorial. So Richard, some conservative commentators saying this is typical of the media, just turning these shootings into a plea for more gun control and suggesting that those who disagree are somehow abetting violence. Your take?
Well, where there's smoke, there's fire, Howie. And I think in this particular case, we saw the two shootings over the past 2 weeks that really say that we have a really, really large problem in this country. And I think the media is just highlighting that problem. Now, don't get me wrong.
I think no problem whatsoever with this cover?
Well, no, I think what the media is trying to point out here is that there's a fallacy in Republicans' arguments, right? They're saying that thoughts are prayers, but like faith without works is death. And we have seen no work. So we're not, nobody's saying that. I don't think the media is saying, or the New York Daily News is saying that, you know, passing background checks is going to stop terrorism. I don't think that's what they're saying. But I think this is a time in our country for us to push forward action. Case in point, right? When the media covered the Selma, when they covered the protesters crossing across the Edmund Pettus Bridge 50 years ago, the ideal was by covering this we could invoke action in Congress, and that's exactly what they did. And this is the media doing this once again.
Well, the tone of this seems very different to me than Selma. By the way, the Daily News is owned by Mort Zuckerman and John Leo, a conservative columnist and friend of Zuckerman for 3 decades, called this cover a gratuitous slap at Christianity and people who mourn the dead with prayer. Meanwhile, the New York Times editorial we mentioned earlier, calling for sweeping gun control, going further than President Obama is supposed to go. Eric Erickson, the Red State founder and Fox News contributor, took aim literally at this editorial. If we can put it up, and we see it. He posted that online. So respond to Richard on this notion that the media are just trying to highlight a serious problem in America, which there is a serious problem in America.
If that's true, then they wouldn't have just highlighted the Republicans saying our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of San Bernardino, because President Obama said his thoughts and prayers were with the victims. And that's the way it should be. We should have that expression. It really just shows that their answer to it is one way, that they think gun control will be the answer. And I think that that belies the fact that, you know, we do want action, but we have different ways of acting to it. And the media is taking sides on this in a very gratuitous way that swipes at a lot of Americans. And it's distasteful.
Anything gratuitous or
no? I mean, I don't think they're swiping at Americans at all. I think if you are a legal gun owner and you've gotten your gun the right way and you are a regular American citizen with a gun, that's perfectly fine. That's what our Constitution says. I think what they're saying is there's no reason that the individual who shot up the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs or the San Bernardino shooter should have had that type of weapons. No reason why. And the reason why they have it is because gun laws are very
Richard, San Bernardino was clearly a case, we now know, of a Muslim couple who became radicalized by Islam. And conservative commentators, are they trying to turn this into an attack on Muslims? Because the New York Post changed its headline to Muslim killers as more information came out the night of that awful shooting.
Well, I don't think you could look at San Bernardino in vacuum, right? If you look at the past 2 weeks of crimes, you have San Bernardino, you have Colorado Springs. What it says to us as Americans, what it says to journalists...
Talk about the way the media are framing this.
Right, and I think there's a problem with how the media is framing it, because terrorism doesn't know a religion or a creed or a race. Terrorism is crazy people acting crazy and acting irrational, and that's the same thing we saw in Colorado Springs and the same thing we saw in San Bernadino. Crazy people acting out.
Sometimes it is true that these are crazy people who have access to guns, and we can debate whether tougher gun control. In many cases, it wouldn't have any effect. In some cases, it might. But in the case of San Bernardino, maybe they're crazy, but they were crazy. This was obviously pre-planned with all the ammunition in the name of religion.
It's not crazy. It's a purposeful act. That's why the FBI is investigating it as an act of terror. But I think the really interesting thing about this cover is also the business aspect of it. They knew this was going to be controversial. They got 11 million views on Facebook. They got 2 million views on Twitter. So they were jumping into a very important conversation that we're having as a country right now.